like 4 videos
Yeah.
that I recorded, and I'm like, and all of them I got like first try. I'm like, yes,
Nailed it.
and it took me a while.
Yeah.
And then went to go edit it a couple days later,
Yeah.
and then I look, and the mic did not connect correctly, and it actually muted all of the videos. And we're talking like, a couple of hours of like doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is. And it's so rare that you ever get one that is bang on straight up.
Yeah.
I did this morning like a welcome video and like how to do a check-in and whatever it was, and tracking nutrition, and such simple stuff. You get in front of a camera with the mic on, and then you just can't speak.
It's very true. It's a skill that takes time to get better at.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to one of the guys the other day at work, and it's like, I remember when I first decided that I wanted to start posting videos on Instagram of talking.
Yeah.
And you have all these ideas, right, that you're trying to kind of like contextualize so it makes sense. But you also want to make it so you don't go off on tangents. You also want to make it so it's not too long. You got to get straight to the point. To do all of that and then to do it like so it flows nicely. Like I remember when I first started doing it, it take me like hours to do it. Now it's a lot better.
Yeah.
Now it's a lot better. But that's why, there's a big respect to people like coaches that their content online, it just delivers straight away and you understand it.
Yeah.
Because you know that they know a lot more than how should I say it? They know a lot more, but they're dumbing it down so much so people can actually understand in like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And that is the hard thing. And literally the reason why I started doing this is because I had trouble with that. So I would just go in the opposite direction, because I always thought, well, I can do it for 45 minutes at a time when I do a PT session and do an okay job, so we can have a conversation.
There you go.
And on to your point of without, going down a rabbit hole or getting on a tangent, that's the whole purpose of today is to, all the rabbit holes, all the tangents, just try not to offend too many people. But, but also, it's conversation and it's who you are as a person. So it doesn't matter what you say really, because if someone's offended by it, then fuck them.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's my podcast, not anybody else's. So that's okay. So, mate, we've started. That's probably the best way to do it. Is just get rolling and then go from there. So I guess, well, your name and a little bit about you is going to be on the introduction of the podcast. So let's just get stuck into it. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
My name is Luciano, and I am a trainer at One Playground Merrickville, and I do online coaching as well. And I'm obsessed with all things training and nutrition. Love nerding out on it.
I really like in your Instagram bio, what have you got? Studying a master's degree in bro science.
Yeah. We had all these kind of jokes at work where it's like, when you're in the hypertrophy training kind of realm, right? And let's say you got any kind of, you look like you lift to a certain degree, right? And you take your training seriously and you understand all the concepts that get results, right? And you walk around with an iPad and stuff, but at the same time, you're wearing like a singlet.
Yeah. You
got muscles and stuff like that. We had a joke at work. Like there was a number of words going around, nicknames going around, like the hypertrophy doctor and things like that. Nice. And I think one day, I think it was when I started posting content, someone said to me something funny. I forgot what it was. I think they said something like, "Oh, you look like you're the doctor of hypertrophy," or something like that, or like the brofessor. That was it.
Brofessor,
right?
That's nice.
And the nicknames just kept on going. And I'm like, you want to know what? I gotta just lighten up the mood a little bit, because the thing is like I said, on one end of the spectrum, you're training people that want to look jacked, that have that certain stigma that they're like meathead bodybuilders that just like grunting and lifting heavy weight.
Which is class as well.
Yeah, exactly. But in the same sense, even though you're appealing kind of to that demographic, kind of, right? On the same sense, hypertrophy training can be very technical.
Yeah.
And if you're following an evidence-based approach, it can be quite detailed and technical.
Yeah.
So it's like crossing the bridge between those two, I find is quite funny, you know?
Absolutely. And it's so funny because I think, I don't know, maybe it's just where I view it on the iPad, but when you have to click the see more in your bio to see what the rest of it says. I was like studying a master degree. I was like, what's he studying? And then I was like, that's great. But it's true. Hey, like I think one thing, again, the whole purpose of the podcast, or one of the purposes of the podcast, is to show a little bit more to what we do, because as we were talking at the start, to have really, really good content and give really, really good information in a very short period of time, it can only come from studying it for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I guess as PTs, not only PTs, but we are really invested in our education to get better results for not only ourselves, but also our clients as well.
Exactly.
And I don't think that people can... It's just lack of knowledge, I guess, but don't necessarily or can appreciate how much time we probably spend on our education and really going into the rabbit holes of what it is to get in shape.
That is very true. I mean, a lot of people, when they see trainers, they think about back in the day, it might have been, I don't know, 1980s, 1990s, whatever it is, where you come across trainers in a run-of-the-mill commercial gym, and it's just a one-off cash session, right? They're screaming at their clients, saying all this douchey motivational stuff while they're training, right? They're doing different workouts every time, these, just stupid stuff. And then the client leaves and they're just like, oh, that trainer's good. That must be an easy job. There's not much else to it. I could do that, right? Job. But the thing is there's a lot more to it. I mean, you've got the actual sessions, right? And then you've got, depending on your systems that you have in place, but probably the basic ones you should have in place, doing check-ins, for example, outside the sessions, the programming aspect of things, the nutrition side of things. If you have an online business or you want to grow your online business, doing the content, which takes stupidly long. Longer than most people might imagine.
I know, that's so. it's almost depressing when you think about not wasted time, but the time sometimes it takes to make a 30-second clip.
People just don't know. It's sad, but it is what it is, right? That's what we signed up for.
True.
So and at the end of the day, I wouldn't have it any other way, anyways.
That's the thing. We do. There's a lot of work involved in it. But when you actually think about segmenting the little bits of like all of the work that you do, none of it's that bad as well.
Exactly.
But it just amounts to a lot of work. Like I have close to 40 clients at the moment, so every one of them has a program. Every one of them, for the most part, is doing nutrition. They need to check in. Like then they've got PT sessions as well too. On top of that, that's just a lot of hours per week.
Exactly, and it begs the question: how would you be dealing with it if you didn't love training so much?
Well,
that's what I think sometimes. Because when I tell people that aren't coaches how much time I'm spending on admin and stuff, and even just in my spare time, like I'm sure you're probably the same way. Do you ever feel like when you have a lot of spare time one week, you just get this level of excitement where you're like, I can do so many things in this spare time, business related things, right? And then next thing you know, you're like, wait a second, that spare time has not been spare time.
It's just work time.
It's just been work time, because you're always trying to find an opportunity to optimize your productivity, be one step ahead in regards to your admin and things like that, right?
And then education, reading, whatever it might be.
And then you say that to someone that doesn't have that kind of work, and they're like, wow, that's a lot. Like, but when you enjoy it, it doesn't really seem like a lot. Does it? Like it does, but it doesn't.
It doesn't, because that's where we are lucky as well, because we get a really good view of a lot of people's, like a lot of different type of people and then different type of careers with the clients that we work with. And oftentimes, I think there's nothing wrong with anybody doing anything they do by hurting someone. But like if you're doing a job that you don't really enjoy, like we enjoy, there's not always times where you enjoy every single second of it. You get tired, you need breaks, all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it is Like I've been training since I was 12 because I got into it because I was interested and it's my
Holy shit, 12.
Yeah, doesn't look
Wow.
like it, but
Yeah.
but yeah, and I can't see. I've had periods where you have a rough patch and you think, God, is this the thing to do? But I literally can't see myself doing anything else.
Exactly.
Even though then, it's funny when I got out of school, I nearly got a trade as a chef, and then I didn't like the hours because you would work so late.
Yeah.
But now I start significantly earlier and work all the way through the day.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
14 hours later, then I go home but I don't think that I do when I look at it at that amount of hours, but then I don't think that it is as much work as a normal job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the enjoyment factor,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's exactly a point I was trying to get at. Is
Yeah.
like you enjoy something, it's not going to feel like work.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can put in more hours and push it even harder, and that goes into the topic of training.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've said it to your clients probably before. You've said it to friends before, where it's like if you enjoy something, you're going to push it harder,
Yeah.
and you're going to be more consistent with it, and
Yeah.
it's not going to feel like work.
That's it.
So
And that's a big thing is if you don't enjoy it, you won't be better at it because training or PT in itself, they say the average amount of time that someone's a PT is about 6 months.
yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think people think that, it's an easy side gig. I can just get into it and then it'll be easy. There's just
Ain't no side gig, that's for sure.
It's definitely
Yeah.
Have you had clients ask you what you do, what else you do as with PT?
No, I think when I started, I had that question,
Yeah.
quite a bit, and yeah, at that time, it's like, what else do you do? Program. It's like that's what else I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, at the end of the day, I actually had a client say to me a couple weeks back. He was asking me about, like we were just saying, what you do in your spare time, admin, programming, and stuff like that, and I was saying to him how it's very time consuming, but at the same time, I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. And the way he said it was, he goes, not everything's going to be enjoyable. Like there's a suck in everything.
Yeah.
Right. And it's very true. I mean, look at it. We love training, but you have those days where you really don't want to.
Yeah. And
right.
It sucks.
You might be tired. It sucks, but you like it at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, even though we enjoy training hard, when you're let's say you're on a hack squat machine, you really got to dig deep.
Yeah.
You're pushing you're trying to push a PB.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It actually sucks. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You enjoy it.
Objectively.
You enjoy it before and after the fact, but while it's happening, you don't.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a suck in everything. You
Yeah.
cannot always have it your way 100%. Right. So I think that would probably be the suck aspect of coaching. Would be all the admin work, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And it just is time consuming as well, particularly when you're doing, if you do 30, 40 sessions a week, that's a lot of time per week. That's someone's normal job, normal hours for a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have probably 10 to 15 hours or more of admin outside
Exactly.
of it. So you really, really have to enjoy it. And I guess that's why we are so lucky, but also it's a choice to be able to do that. But yeah, I can't ever see myself doing anything other than PT. How long have you been training? How long have you been a PT for now?
Good question. I think it's actually marking 10 years now.
Nice. Beat that
yeah.
6-month average.
Yeah, exactly. Although barely.
Yeah.
When I first started, it was a bit of a struggle to get my bearings right because there's so many different things you need to learn. It's not just training someone, like I said.
Yeah.
I didn't understand before training people that there's so much more that goes into it, right? There's even just something as little as learning how to assess someone and what you can take out of that and how you can write out a program based on that, the check-ins outside the sessions, all the admin, all that kind of stuff. It's very overwhelming at the very beginning. Then you become accustomed to it, right? But I think it's been since 2014 that I've been training people, and I started off in like a small kind of local gym. Then I moved on to a more commercial gym, and then obviously now at One Playground. I'd say graduated to One Playground.
So when did you start there
I went at the very beginning, almost.
Yeah.
I think it was 2015 or 2016, actually. I think I was only a year or two into being a coach, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and majority of the education I did and majority of the actual proper coaching that I did has been at one playground for the most part.
Yeah.
So what about yourself? You've been there for a while as well, haven't you?
7 years this month. It's at where
7 years at one playground?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I come to Sydney 2017 in Feb, and then I started the interview process, but it was, I think, like 6 to 8 weeks before they started me here at Surrey.
Yeah.
Because I think I just missed an induction, and then they, I think, may have wanted me to either go to, I think Darius maybe wanted me to go to Marrickville, but I think that Matt Duncan wanted me here, so I just kind of got shuffled around a little bit to start here, because I used to live in Lewisham, so that one was the closest.
Yeah.
In Marrickville. I used to train over there on the weekends, but
Okay. Yeah, because I actually started at Surrey Hills.
oh, did you?
Yeah. I think I was there for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was. It might have been the demographic
Yeah.
or whatever at the time. And I was also starting off. It just wasn't my forte.
Yeah.
I think the demographic I was looking after, it just wasn't jiving well with me.
Yeah.
And we suggested the idea to go to Marrickville, and then everything kicked off so well.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you that, if you try to appeal to everyone, you're going to appeal to no one.
Yeah.
And you really got to hone in on your niche.
Yeah.
To get the best results for your clients and for things to be successful as a coach, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and when we first start off, you're trying to appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
You're trying to get as much experience as you can, as many results with as many different demographics as you can. And most people don't refine that niche until a while into being a coach, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it was a bit rough at the beginning, but now I'm very happy with where things are.
Yeah. And so you've been there that whole time. So how long after starting here did you say you moved? 6 months?
Yeah, I think it was 6 months, short of 6 months probably.
Yeah.
And I would still consider myself, like I said, graduate to one playground, because the gyms I was at before, they didn't have the same level as development, education, support, and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I got so attracted to one playground, is because they had all that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So you feel confident being a coach.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
at other places, which I'm not going to name, right? But you're kind of just thrown out to a sea of sharks, and
Yeah.
it's very competitive as well.
Yeah.
We've got a very good community
Yeah.
at one playground. Everyone gets along with each other. We have fun nights out as well, which
Yeah.
helps. And there's not a competitive edge behind it, which is great.
Yeah, it makes it. But then, in the same way, that environment pulls you forward or pushes you forward as well too, because you see,
Yeah.
it's everybody's getting better, but it's not in a competitive way that they're going to try and steal your clients. It's
Exactly.
you're like, oh, they're doing that as well, I can do that, or I might do this, and then that
Yeah.
helps that other person, which is quite cool.
Exactly. It's very cool. It's a very good community.
Yeah, for sure. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, because Marrickville's changed a lot in that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like,
Did you? What did you think of the early days of Marrickville? Because I think that was my favorite because I like the weightlifting platforms down the end there.
oh, right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's a bit of a controversial topic, I think.
I bet, yeah.
I was talking to some of the other guys that do weightlifting the other week about that. Yeah. I guess that's going to go back into, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that's going to go back into the topic of what I was just saying about appealing to a specific demographic.
Yeah.
And isn't it coincidental what you just said? And I went to Marrickville and things kicked off very well. Demographic being hypertrophy and fat loss based, right? Some could argue like the bodybuilder-esque people that are interested in the bodybuilder-esque kind of training, although it's not entirely how I train people.
Yeah.
And then the equipment and how everything's segmented has kind of veered in that direction as per recently.
Yeah.
Right? So
It
there you go.
makes sense though. It's just, that's it. Appeal to your market. It's
Yeah.
if you want that, then project that, and then you'll probably get that.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about the clients that you do work with now.
Yeah. So pretty much anyone who's interested in building muscle, losing fat, and just transforming their body in general. I would say people aged anywhere from 21 as high as 45, 50 years old are my clients.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, I went through a period of time where I said to myself, I only want to coach people that are like advanced clients. And I was being very specific on my niche, which is fine. And I've got great results with a lot of clients like that. However, something just came about me recently where I think everyone has Gen Pop clients to a certain degree, I guess. And there's certain levels to it, right? I think if you get a Gen Pop client, someone who's a raw beginner and they cannot really move too well, but they've also are very unmotivated, they lack the discipline and they lack the adherence aspect. Sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating. But if you get that level of a Gen Pop client, someone who wants to make things work, right? They ask questions all the time, right? They want to plan, they want to stick to it. They're ready. They're ready. Let's say they've been overweight and they haven't been confident in themselves in a long time. And all they needed was a solid plan and someone to hold them accountable to make it work. And now you pick up that client. Those clients are so fucking satisfying to see them get results. Because you're literally just seeing someone come from nothing to being this different human being in every way possible. I've seen it so many times. Like, you know, that feeling when you get someone who's like, I've never been able to do a push-up in my life. Next thing you know, it's 6 months down the line, they're cranking out chin-ups and push-ups. They're confident in themselves. They've lost all this weight they did in such a short period of time. And they now have the confidence to be in the gym at peak hour by themselves. They can get a full workout done. They're not scared to be in the gym, right? Very satisfying. So people like that, I actually do like working with quite a bit these days. It's very fulfilling. And they end up, they are almost like what you want in an advanced client. That's like an advanced client. That advanced client that you want to work with, their starting stages, if that makes sense. And you're building them up to that point. So I actually like working with those kinds of people as well. I actually do.
It shows as well when you explain that, you get excited in that and you can tell that. Because it's really, really cool and it's really exciting to see that people go from that stage of being unsure whether they can achieve their results to then just, we know as coaches, if you do follow the process and you have that accountability of like the potential to get to and just be a completely different person. And it shows, like, obviously you can see it with transformation photos, but like you said, clients coming into the gym at peak times and they're training and they're holding their own with everybody else and they don't give a fuck really because they know they're doing everything right. And that is obviously the value of a coach as well too, is that that's what we're there for. We're there to teach you the best we know, which after 10 years is pretty good. You know, after a decade of doing it, you know, the rule of 10,000 hours, you're probably an expert by that point. So to be able to, and I find a joy in that as well, getting someone that result so much faster than I ever could have got by myself when I first started, because I've gone at it pretty much, I've never had a coach before. And the way that I've done it, particularly with clients with that, you know, pretty cool transformation, you see that difference in confidence, but being able to do that in like a 6-month time frame as opposed to being, you know, it's like you can,
and that's the part of the excitement that I'm talking about in getting those clients, is because you kind of vicariously living through them in a way, because you're like, fuck, if I could do it again and I could have a coach as good as me, right? To lead me along the way, the results that would have taken me 2 to 3 years of figuring things out, ego lifting, getting injured, whatever it is, right? Half-assing stuff. I could have just done it in half the amount of time if I just had a solid coach. You know what I mean? So that is very exciting as well.
And that's why, like, as coaches, we get excited about it because we can see the potential. I understand from the client side of it when you're, you know, being unsure about it, and because it challenges a lot of things about a client when they are making change. Like, you know, a lot of people have that, their perception of who they are and what they've always been like, and it's hard to see that. And it's just such a really cool process to see them start to see kind of that light of like, oh shit, it's actually happening. You
Yeah.
get a client to, they get veins on their arms for the first time. They've never seen that.
That
They
little
get
bicep vein.
Yeah, that little bicep vein, which is extremely
The
important.
milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like, start to get abs and things like that.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool. So I guess on that, how you said, be cool to, if you had that direction, 2 or 3 years earlier, where could have you got to? What are some of the mistakes? Because I guess they're going to be similar to other people. What are some of the mistakes that you've made in the past with your training and nutrition?
Well, before I get into that, let me just say that I did have good guidance at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. But much like a client who has good guidance at the beginning, you do veer off a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a client and you're saying to yourself, if you could just listen to this X, Y, and Z, trust me, you'll end up where you want to be at.
Yeah.
Just stop getting distracted by social media. Stop getting distracted by all these people and thinking that's the way.
Yeah.
Okay, just do it this way and you'll get to where you need to. So that was the same thing with me, is like I had bodybuilders as parents, right? My dad was 2-time Mr. Universe in Australia and my mum was Miss Eastern USA. You could say they knew a thing or two about training and nutrition. Sure. And the thing is I kind of had 24-hour access to 2 coaches essentially, right? And although they would give me amazing advice and I utilized a lot of it, as I started buying bodybuilding magazines and as I started becoming more familiar with the names in the industry, I then started going into rabbit holes of their training routines and nutrition plans. And I would go back to my parents and ask them about it. And just like how I would answer questions to my client when they ask me about influencers, workouts and stuff like that, they would say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this for X, Y, and Z reason or whatever. And then sometimes I would still do it, right?
That's part of the learning process as well too.
Exactly. So I didn't make too many mistakes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I would like to say I made quite fast progress.
Yeah.
I do have, I think you could agree that I do have good genetics from my parents.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what, I don't know too many people that would have trained as hard and as consistent as I did, being a beginner and doing it properly from the very fucking beginning, which a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, there wasn't many mistakes. I think from a training perspective, I never really ego lifted. I never really injured myself. I think maybe copying routines of pro bodybuilders, very high volume routines, like a lot of junk volume and just frying myself with that. That's probably one thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't really think of anything off the top of my head other than that right now that would have been really holding me back. I think I did go through a period where I got very invested in the whole high intensity training, like the Mike Mensa, Arthur Jones, Dorian Yates style training, taking that overboard and again, frying myself real bad and burning out and then going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, maybe I should do this. But nutrition, I think I definitely made a lot of mistakes there. Again, I was led in the right direction, but there was a lot of things that I did out of, I don't know if you'd like to call it ego, stubbornness.
Yeah. Okay.
So I remember I went through a bad period of yo-yo dieting and very bad. I think I was 16 at the time, 17. And I think I literally, as funny as it sounds, I got down to like below 10% body fat. It was on a caliper test, but still I looked it, right? Yeah. I was in awesome shape. Always ripping off my shirt in public events where I could.
As you would be,
trying to get girls' attention, And so what had happened was I wanted to maintain that lean 6-pack, right? Now, I was in an extreme deficit. I also, another mistake is that I thought that I could only eat quote unquote clean foods, right? But very extreme, like chicken breast, broccoli, brown rice, no seasoning, no salt all day long. And the issue there was that I wanted to maintain this leanness once I achieved it. But I thought you just need to stay on the deficit forever, right? Now, again, my dad's advice would be you need to go on a maintenance diet.
Yeah.
And then I would say, okay, but I'm going to get fat.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, right? When you're in a deficit, you're losing weight. When you're on a maintenance diet, you're maintaining weight.
Yeah.
But the thought of having more food was horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just worked so hard to get a six pack. So what I'd done for a while was I would be sticking to this aggressive deficit, just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And then when the weekend came along, I would have the so-called cheat meal or cheat day or
cheat weekend.
Cheat weekend. Dare I say cheat week? Yeah, no.
It progresses, doesn't it? Yeah. I've made that mistake before as well.
So, and you deprive yourself all week long with these clean foods on a low-calorie diet. You're already below 10% body fat, so you're getting all those, your hunger hormones are all out of whack. And then, it starts Saturday morning sometimes, and then it just got out of control where it's like those days would be, I couldn't even tell you. I remember once I went to McDonald's and they had this really good McFlurry. Like, I still love McFlurries.
They're very good.
When they have the limited edition ones, like the real dirty ones, you know?
Perfect for a cheat weekend.
Yeah. So I remember it was like a drive in. I would have just had like a gyros or something, kebab, right? Then I go in the drive through, get a McFlurry. I finished it. Like as soon as we parked in the car park, I finished it, went back around, got a second one. And that was just starting, right? Then we have like whole jars of Nutella in the mix and things like that, right? So then what had happened was when we go back to Monday, right, my weight would have shut up. And what do you think I would have done? Straight back onto the deficit, sometimes even harder. Okay. And this fucked me up so bad. I think at the time, first of all, it's a surefire way to lose your physique in a very short period of time. Because your body's, in order to lose fat, you're going by a weekly deficit. 7 days out of the week, you got to average this number to lose this amount. It's pure maths, right? If you have those cheat days, okay, that blows it out of proportion. If you need 2,000 calories a day to lose half a kilo a week, okay, if you have 2 days out of the week where you have 10,000 calories, right?
Surprising how many calories you can put away.
Yeah. You're not on 2,000 calories anymore and you'll put on weight. So that kept on happening. And then it just came to a point where I'm like, this is too much. My parents are trying to help me, giving me good advice. And I'd ask them, hey, like, what do I do? But again, I was too stubborn. So that happened. I remember I burnt myself out real bad to the point where I actually had to stop training for a little while. I think it was a couple of weeks, and then just build my hormones back up naturally, of course, and start implementing more healthy eating habits. And I think I did that when I was very young. I think I did that twice very badly. And from there on out, it actually taught me better eating habits, as funny as that sounds. It actually kind of set me up for first of all, for life, and saying, I don't want that to happen again. Okay. Now I know those answers that my parents were saying to me was true. Okay. And also I've done a lot more education since then to confirm that. But that was a real big nutrition mistake. I have a lot of other ones, but that's probably the biggest one I can take home from.
I did a similar thing as well too, back the same, like the starve and gorge. You have the cheat day, and then the cheat day will be, or the cheat meal, and the cheat meal will start then halfway through the day and then go most of the day in the morning, and then just same thing, dive straight back into the huge deficit the next day, and then you just feel like shit constantly.
Exactly. It's not a way to live.
No, it's not. But I guess there was probably, how long ago was that for you? How many years ago?
So I'm 28 years old now. That was when I was like, I know it sounds crazy, 16, 17 years old, because I started training when I was 14 years old. And I started tracking calories and everything literally when I was, 15, 16 years old. I think so. That's when I started learning about calorie tracking, MyFitnessPal, and all that kind of stuff.
It's crazy that MyFitnessPal was around back then. I guess it makes sense.
Well, it actually started off where I think I think it started off by buying one of those calorie counter books. That's how I started off.
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I'm not old,
No,
right?
no, but it just...
And then I found out about, I forgot how I found out about my fitness pals. Actually, those calorie counter books, don't think they sell them anymore. I don't know. Yeah, probably somewhere on the black market or something.
Yeah. You'd probably find one at a newsagent's or something like that.
Yeah. So, and I remember doing that, and I'm like, it was like all my answers are in one book. This whole thing of like, should I eat that? Am I going to get fat from that? It kind of like was giving you a bit of an idea as to like, oh, well, you can eat this and you can still make it work.
Yeah.
You know? But I guess the whole clean food versus dirty food thing didn't quite match up with me at that moment.
Yeah.
I still thought, even though calories are very important, I still thought I never could eat anything that I didn't enjoy. Right? I couldn't eat anything that I enjoyed and make it work within my calorie amount. You know, so I restricted myself so much with such bland food, like those pro bodybuilder diets, and that just added to it.
Yeah, the worst one I done was just fish and greens for like a month.
Oh, God. That is just
So
not a way to be living, yeah?
No, it's not. I got lean, but also I just lost a heap of size. I got down to, at my lowest, it's the same, like a similar... It's funny, when you got down that far, could you see that you were lean, or you didn't realize that you were as lean as you were, or you could actually see?
I never really, despite what most people probably think, I never really fell into that body dysmorphia hole, right? I think everyone to a certain degree that trains for aesthetics, you'll be like, I can be a little bit better. You know, and I did have that a little bit, but I recognized when I was lean. I definitely did. You know, when you're taking photos and you're looking at yourself quite regularly and you're seeing the scale going down to confirm how you're feeling and how you're looking, right? It kind of sets you on the right path, you know? So,
well, the lowest I got down to, I went from 92 to 65 or something like that.
What?
Yeah, it took it way too far.
That's wild. And do you remember what time span that was in?
I was 92 in high school because I played rugby and I just wanted to be the biggest guy on the field.
Yeah.
So I just got up to as heavy as I could. Still training, but just not eating bad, but just eating, you know, just not like a dirty bulk, but just eating to be big.
Yeah.
And then I was never the kid with abs at all ever at school. I was always the fatter kid. So I just kind of went in. Then I grew a little bit taller and didn't seem as fat because I was a bit taller, but I wasn't never lean.
Okay.
So when I finished school and I started to learn a little bit more about nutrition and that, I then went hard on it and just got too low. I think at one point I was down to like 1,300 calories a day.
Wow.
Yeah, trying to train twice a day.
Yeah.
I did have photos. I can see the photos in my head that I deleted because I was like, no, that's not me.
Yeah, traumatized by them.
But then I had the big up and down, but I don't have a photo to show how small I actually was.
Yeah.
It must have been 20 years old. So,
It's a young age to be going through that. Putting yourself through that.
Yeah. And also just, you know, like I was the same height as I am now as well. At 65 kilos now.
That's wild.
Now I'm 81. But that's a really good point with being in a deficit and then coming back to maintenance. I think that's something that people struggle with as well. Just because you want to hold on to that look.
Yeah.
And then when you add calories back in, you think, well, if I add calories, I'm going to put on weight. Yes.
Big psychological aspect, right?
Yeah.
And and that's the thing is like that goes into an important topic of like I'm getting to a point here, so don't let me go on a tangent too much.
Mate, they're welcome.
But it's
go to the tangent.
It's people that don't practice what they preach. Okay. Now, if you're in the trenches, you've been there, you've done that, okay? And you have the educational aspect. I'm not disregarding that. Believe me on that, right? But if you've been through it before, you can now get that education, okay? The stuff that you've learned, you can confirm it, okay? With a little bit of anecdotal evidence, okay? And that goes a long way. It goes a long way because now you can kind of empathize with the client as well when they're going through something similar that you've gone through before, And when we talk about like the nutrition mistake that I made with the yo-yo dieting and everything, and then trying to bring your calories up to maintenance after you've leaned out, I've got it heaps of times where clients have said, but I'm going to get fat, right? And I'm like, well, it's called maintenance diet for a reason. It's to maintain what you have right now. But I understand that psychologically, when you hear you're going to have more calories, you feel like you're going to get fat, so to speak. And then you can then tell them on a theoretical level why that doesn't make sense, okay, and why it's going to be a successful outcome. And then you can tell them on an anecdotal level, hey, look, I know that when it happened to me, this is what happened. Like X, Y, and Z happened. X, Y, and Z won't happen. Trust me on that. Okay. And then if for some reason it does happen, you do start to put on weight, we will adjust. Okay. It's not the end of the world. Okay. So yeah, I think that goes a long way, you know, and it can go both ways though. Right. So if someone's just done all the theoretical education and hasn't been in the trenches themselves, I would like to think there are quite a lot of coaches that get people good results. There's a couple of people that I'm thinking of off the top of my head where you're just like, this person doesn't even look like they've trained or a day in their lives, right? But they get people good results. And then there's the other aspect as well, where it's people that are only in the trenches and they don't have any education outside of that. And all the advice they're giving is subjective advice. It's based on what they think works good for them, but what works good for you is not going to work good for everyone else. So having somewhere in between, more veering on the side of being educated in the theoretical sense, and then the experience you've got yourself will kind of confirm that. For sure. In my eyes, is one of the better ways of approaching coaching.
For sure.
Right.
Well, it's that's the thing is, if you've never experienced it, I think the anecdotal evidence, not just only from yourself, but I guess seeing other clients do it, but experiencing it yourself is such a massive thing. Like when we train and we're training clients, we know what that feels like.
Exactly.
We really, really do. And probably to a more extent than they do. Not that we're better, but we probably just train a little bit harder for a longer period of time. And it's a funny thing because I think people think the better shape you get in, the easier it gets. But it's literally the opposite. How hard you have to train now to get results is so much harder than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's very true. It's like at this stage, I was even thinking about it recently. I did a mass gaining phase. Right now I'm just maintaining, and I saw good results in that period of time. I actually cut it short because going back to what we were saying before, I just like staying lean, right? So I'm like, fuck this. I think it was 10 weeks in, I'm like, you want to what? I just want to drop back down maintenance.
Yeah, fair. What were you going for and what did you get to?
So it was a very small one. I was at a lower body weight than where I wanted to be at. And I just wanted to gain, I think it was 900 grams a month.
Okay.
Like a kilo a month.
Yeah.
For 3 months. And I put on like 2.5 or whatever. Like barely noticed any body fat come on or anything like that. And then I'm just like, I just want to maintain and chill for a while. And to get results later on down the track, it takes a lot longer. Okay. And it takes long as it is. And that even talking about mass gaining, that's also a mistake that a lot of people make is trying to mass gain. People set their expectations way too high. Like you really only should be trying to gain like 1 to 2% of your body weight a month. A month.
Otherwise, it's very depressing when you come back from 10 kilos up and you're like, I built a kilo of muscle in the last.
Exactly. And I've had so many clients that have gone to a mass gaining phase and I'm like, okay, you're 100 kilos. If you have a 100-kilo client who's going to a mass gain phase, they're probably like a pro bodybuilder. But you know what I'm trying to say, just giving an example. You're 100 kilos and we're going to go into a mass gaining phase. So you're going to have to gain 1 to 2 kilos a month. And they're like, wait, a week? I'm like, no, a month, right? And then trying to explain to them, it's like, you do a dirty bulk, you eat as many calories as you can. You're going to pay for it later on down the track. You're going to have to go in such an aggressive deficit or a deficit for such an extended period of time, you'll probably end up losing the muscle mass you thought you put on anyways, right? So less is definitely more in that instance.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Of all the things we do in the gym, of the, I guess, kind of three things we usually look at, it's getting stronger, getting leaner, and building muscle mass. Building muscle mass is the hardest and slowest of it all.
Yeah.
You could lose 10 kilos in 10 weeks. You can't put on 10 kilos of lean mass in 10
That
weeks.
is so true. That is so true.
Unless it's assisted, but even then, still, that's
Exactly.
exceptional.
Yeah.
And then after a point, it's not going to continue like that. So
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
Oh, no. I was just going to say that's why enjoying the process is so important. You know, focusing on progress in the gym.
Yeah.
When you're going through a mass gaining phase that's a little bit slower than what you wanted it to be, it's very important, right?
Yeah,
You just focus on the numbers aspect in the gym. And then if you focus on the process for long enough, the end outcome will, I guess, perceptually feel a lot easier. Like you kind of just stumbled upon it. You're like, oh, 3 months, I've just been focusing on getting stronger in the gym and enjoying my training sessions. And I actually did put on the weight I wanted to put on, right? Whereas if you're hyper focused on it every single week, it can be a little bit intimidating. And after a certain stage in time, you can kind of reflect back on things and say, well, I am making the progress I should be, but it doesn't quite feel like it. And then get unmotivated and whatever.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you do with your clients when they're going into a mass gaining phase where they want to put on muscle mass? What would you do with their training, and what would you do with their nutrition?
So as far as training is concerned, things won't really change that much. The same principles still apply. Progressive overload, training close to failure. Volume might fluctuate a little bit. I normally go with like a moderate volume approach. Sometimes lower volume in a deficit because their recovery capabilities are going to be a lot lower, and sometimes higher volume in mass gaining phases because their recovery capabilities are going to be a lot higher.
What would you say is lower volume, higher volume, and kind of in the mid range for you?
Well, if we're going to go by exact numbers, it's very hard to put an exact number. Roughly around 10 to 20 working sets for a muscle group per week. But sometimes more, sometimes less. And there's a lot of context behind that. Like are all of those sets taken to failure? Are they not? Which exercises are you doing? Things like that. But generally speaking, somewhere in the middle of that range, somewhere between 10 to 15 sets per body part per week is normally where I average with clients.
How would you then split that across the week? Would you do it in 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions?
Yep. So look, obviously even studies have shown that training a muscle group 1 time per week to 2 times per week, there's not really a noticeable difference, if any, if volume is equated. However, if you do too much volume in one session, it will be counterproductive. Okay, and you'll fall into doing a lot of junk volume, like unproductive volume. That's not going to elicit a muscle growth response.
So I can't do 25 sets of chest on Monday?
Unfortunately, no. Maybe if you read the bodybuilding magazines, you will. Yeah. The good old Arnold Schwarzenegger chest and back workout, I'm sure everyone's done at some stage.
Classic.
Yeah.
So you got to revisit that every now and then.
Yeah.
I had a client that he gave me his workout program, and it was chest on Monday. I was like, class, that's excellent. And I gave him, like, it was decent. I think it was close to 10 sets in a workout for chest. Like, if you're pushing hard, that's a lot of sets.
Yeah.
And then he hit me back with, no, I want to do this. And it was like literally 20 sets of chest, but he couldn't get through the 10 sets of chest in a workout, but then he wanted to double it. And I was
there you go. Yeah.
Well, let's start with even lower, mate, and get you to.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing that people. That's a mistake I definitely made, and like you said, probably with a bit higher volume as a kid as well too. And you do the Arnold Schwarzenegger chest and back workout, doing 20 sets per body part is
in one session. Is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So and that's why going back to what we were saying with my clients, I'll typically do spread out that volume into at least 2 sessions per week. Sometimes more, and again, sometimes less. It just depends on their split in their certain scenario. But anecdotally, I feel that 2 times per week seems to be a good sweet spot for most people, including myself included. And that's how I'll section out the training aspect with clients. Obviously, whether a beginner, intermediate, or advanced will determine how I choose certain exercises as well? Are they still learning certain movement patterns? Do they know how to push close to failure, etc.? Yes or no? Then that will determine what exercises I'm going to give them. And then from a nutritional standpoint, with clients that want to gain mass, let's say they just came off of a deficit, like we were speaking about before, would bump them up to maintenance calories for a while, let their body adjust to that, even psychologically, let them adjust to the higher calories, and then we will go into a small surplus. Normally, I'll get them to follow a 5 to 10% calorie surplus. So if they were on their maintenance is 2,000 calories a day, let's just say, because that's an easy number, 10% of 2,000 calories is 200.
Yeah.
So it'd be 2,200 calories at the most, right? And then what we will do is we'll obviously go by their performance in the gym, how they're feeling, how they're looking, their weight on the scale, and try to chase that 1 to 2% body weight gain each month I was talking about earlier. And normally I like to set things 12 weeks at a time. And as we were speaking about before, muscle gain takes much longer to build than body fat is to lose. So I always start things off mass gaining as like 10 to 12 weeks is the minimum to get started, right? And explain to them that it's like, we're going to be looking at 12 weeks plus before you start seeing anything dramatic, possibly, right? More like as far as like 6 months.
Yeah. How long would you, what do you think is, following that process, it seems very, obviously, like well thought out, but it seems you'll have to be very patient in that process. It's only a slight little increase, which the whole process you have to be patient with. And like you said,
you definitely
enjoying your training. What do you think in an actual muscle gain standpoint, how much muscle do you think someone could gain within that time? Because obviously there's going to be...
See, that's the thing. It's very hard to put into words because you have all these different variables that come into weight gain, right?
Yeah.
When you're on higher calories, you've got the food volume aspect. You just got more food in your gut, right?
Gonna weigh more.
You got the water retention, the muscle glycogen, potentially your sodium levels will fluctuate day to day, your water intake, all that kind of stuff, your bowel movements, all these things will dictate the weight fluctuations that you have. And that's why the 1 to 2% of your body weight each month, roughly speaking, is a good range to kind of account for that.
Yeah.
Okay, but exact amount of muscle, it would be quite hard to pinpoint that in an ideal situation. I only normally give them rough numbers. I'll say expect to gain roughly this much weight, but not all of it will be muscle. And then and then you've got a little bit of body fat as well, which inevitably will happen when you're in a calorie surplus, right? Which again, a lot of people don't understand is a part of mass gaining. Okay, and when you've been lean for so long or accustomed to being in a deficit, that transition again from going to maintenance and then a surplus where you're actually trying to put on weight and you should be okay with a little bit of body fat gain is very hard for some people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's a hard one on the all those things that are taken into account with lean mass gain are not, as you said, not just muscle tissue. It's going to be glycogen, digestive weight fluid, all those sorts of things. I went and got a DEXA scan recently, and the guy told me, because they do the breakdown on the DEXA, and he said, lean weight, and he's like, that's not muscle. And I was like, yeah, I know. And he's like, I just got to say it because sometimes people, they get confused. And I was like, yeah, I understand.
There you go.
I'm a PT, but he said he had a guy come in and he did a 5-day fast because he heard that fasting increased growth hormone, and then was very disappointed when he when he lost, X amount of kilos.
Yeah, it's like, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah. Growth hormone.
Some people just take it overboard with fad diets. And again, this goes back to what you see on social media. I've seen that trend of people trying to beat a certain amount of days of fasting.
Yeah.
Right? So it's crazy. It's definitely,
Just eat some
wild
food.
stuff.
What's your opinion on fasting?
Well, I remember watching something recently with Lane Norton. who I think very highly of, talking about autophagy and all of that kind of stuff, which can actually happen with a deficit to a certain degree, and isn't always entirely required to do these long bouts of fasting to achieve that. But I think a lot of people that do the fasting are doing it for a weight loss perspective.
Yeah.
More than anything, where it's like, you don't need to be doing that. You can just stick to a deficit, make sure it's a sustainable amount, and you'll lose the weight. You don't need to kill yourself fasting like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous. If we're going to talk time restricted eating though, well, a lot of people call it intermittent fasting, but fasting is when you're not having anything. You're not having black coffee.
Yeah.
So if you want to be politically correct with that term, it's actually time restricted eating.
Just water.
Yeah.
Horrible time.
Some people even say with the toothpaste as well, you're not allowed to brush your teeth. Imagine that. Just rocking up to work, not brushing your teeth, just scaring away all your clients.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fasting, bro. Trust me, I've got it all. I've got it all under wraps. But yeah, time restricted eating though. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on the person, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you've got, I don't know, if someone gives you a particular amount of money to spend in a day, someone says you've got $100,000 to spend today and you've got 24 hours to do it. Well, you got a lot of shit you can spend that money on, right? You can go pretty wild, right? But if you say to them, hey, you've only got a couple hours to spend all that money, chances are you're probably not going to spend all that money, or at least not as easily. I mean, you could be quite creative with that. You can go down some rabbit holes with that. Yeah.
Speaking of rabbit holes, have you seen that guy on Instagram that does the 10 cents for every, on the blackjack, 10 cents for every follower that he has?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's
That's
so
hilarious.
great. He's just this Kiwi lad. So we'll get back to the time restricted eating soon.
Yeah.
There's this Kiwi lad. He had like 15,000 followers, and he's like, day one of going to the blackjack table and betting 10 cents for every Instagram follower. And now he's got 400,000 followers. So he's betting like 40 grand.
Wow.
On one
He's
go.
got himself into a big mess that he cannot get out of now.
But he's got profit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's
wow.
Yeah, because he wins on a 40 grand hand.
Yeah. That's wild. Good on him then.
Yeah, so
good on him.
Maybe that's if you got 100 grand to spend.
There you go.
Get your Instagram followers up as well.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think time restricted eating can work quite well for a lot of people. All you're really doing is you're just restricting your window of eating, and obviously, if you're in a calorie deficit, you want to minimize hunger as much as possible. And if you're condensing all of your meals into a shorter time frame, each meal will be bigger and more satisfying, and you won't feel like you're on a diet as such. All you need to do is just bite down on the bullet for that period of time that you are quote unquote fasting or not eating. And I feel like for a lot of people that live busy lifestyles, it works quite well. So yeah, there's just small things you might want to look out for. Like if you're training first thing in the morning, you might want to do a modified version of it. That's what I actually started doing in the last couple of years with my clients, is that they were doing time restricted eating, but they were training in the morning and they were just fucking starving themselves a whole day. And I'm like, okay, you need some kind of post-workout nutrition. So even like a whey shake and water, for example, just protein, and then just resuming that period of time that you're not actually eating solid meals that contain a substantial amount of calories until the later part of the day.
Yeah, I use that for myself, and I think it's a good strategy. And that I think, well, particularly if you're doing a PT job and you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, it's not the best time to sit down and have a big meal. So I just go maybe small amount of protein and then coffee, and then delay my first meal when I'm into a cut, because then you're down on low calories, have a big meal mid-morning, and then you feel sweet for the rest of the day. Usually the coffee stops that hunger. But then inevitably, I've had clients, actually a girl client, she would fast and she didn't, and then she's now got to a point where, much to what we were talking about before, she would be so low on calories and was fearful that increasing the calories was going to increase body fat. And in fact, she's lost kilos since we've increased the calories by nearly 1,000 calories a day.
Wow.
And is stronger, has better energy, feeling really, really good. But she was really holding on to the fasting, and then she's just come to the realization that she just can't get her calories in the time that she
exactly.
And it just makes sense to spread them out, because at a point, particularly if you are You know, for some of those people that have a harder time getting the amount of calories they need on the upper limit, you know, if you're having huge meals, it's not good from a digestive standpoint.
It isn't. And it's actually funny you said that, because I recently, one of the other reasons why I bumped my calories down to maintenance is because my maintenance is super fucking high, right?
Yeah.
And because I'm so busy with clients in the morning, I mean, you start work at, say, whatever, 6:30, you finish at past midday. And if you need to be shoveling down close to 4,000 plus calories a day, right, to even get weight to start moving, which is my case, right? It's very hard, right? And it's, you can be someone that likes food, but trust me, it's not comfortable, and it's not, you're right, it isn't entirely good for your digestion. So I'm gonna have to try and figure out a way, whether it's before my morning clients or whatever, to just get in a small amount of calories to put a dent in my day, you know? So and right now it's actually easier to follow maintenance. What a first world problem that is.
Oh no, I got a little bit leaner because I got sick of eating.
Pretty much. I'm like saying to my clients like, they'll ask me a question, they're like, hey, just wanted to know, like, what are you doing with your training, whatever, your nutrition? It's like, well, like, I had to go down to maintenance because I couldn't eat all the food I had to eat to lose weight, put on weight. And they're like, yeah, right. So tell me more about your problems in life.
But it is an issue at a point as well too, isn't it? Because the client that I was talking about before, she said, one of her points was that she's like, it's not natural for me to eat this amount or like in a higher quantity. And I was like, well, it's not also natural for you to train like you train as well.
Exactly.
So you expect an unnatural response from the body in terms of training to build muscle mass. It happens, but it's not a natural thing. We have to force it to do it.
Exactly.
And if you want to elicit that response, then you have to eat in that way it's going to get that response. Which isn't natural. Because our body doesn't give a fuck if we've got abs or, you know.
Our body just wants us to sit down and lounge, eat Doritos. And watch Netflix all day long.
Which is,
you know, so it's like it doesn't want us to be putting on crazy amounts of muscle mass and be below 10% body fat all year round.
Which is cool though.
It's pretty cool.
Well, we had a little bit of an intermission there.
We
should probably just need to plan as well, because when you're in here for an hour or two, we've gone over 2 hours and both of us just like...
Wait, we have?
No.
Oh, right. I was going to say.
No. Time flies though. It's been an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting,
So... Okay, what were we talking about? Time restricted eating.
And
you battling to get as many calories in as you can.
Yeah, and you were talking about one of your clients that increased her calories, and then her output was through the roof. And you said she actually lost weight.
Yeah.
That's wild.
She dropped, I think it's only 4 kilos, because I think that's an interesting one for a lot of people. I've dealt with quite a bit recently with people on too low of calories and then struggling to obviously train because they don't have as much calories coming in, and then obviously the amount of activity they do throughout the day just naturally goes down.
I was just about to say that. People get it twisted, right? The starvation mode. Right? Where it's like, if you actually were aware of what your NEAT levels are, your unintentional activity throughout the day, how your body burns calories just by fidgeting. I mean, look, you can tell my NEAT level is very high.
It's a funny thing. I sit here with PTs and they sit here like this all the time.
I actually saw that on a couple of your podcasts. A couple of people were like this, like their NEAT levels are through the roof.
Can't stop moving. Now I'm creating a bit of content for the client-facing stuff. I realize how fucking much I move my hands around.
Yeah.
But it's such a big thing that people don't realize, that when you do bring your calories down so much, then you're going to stop moving. You're going to talk slower. You're going to blink slower. All of those sorts of things.
And that's why it's very important to have all variables tracked when you're trying to lose weight, right? Because things like that can make people very frustrated. If they're in a deficit, they were losing half a kilo a week and now they're losing nothing. And they're like, well, technically I've got all my tracking down pat. I'm weighing everything. I'm measuring everything. I've ticked off all the boxes for that. I swear I'm not lying to you. I'm not cheating on the weekends, right? And you're like, well, why isn't weight loss happening? Probably one of the things that you could consider is the NEAT levels. And one way you can do that is by tracking your step count and periodizing your step count, right? So even by, let's say, 2,000 to 4,000 steps per day, or averaging across the week, every time you hit a wall like that, if you're not going to decrease your calories, could help.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one, and that even goes into the talk that we were saying before with trying to get clients to psychologically accept that the calories need to be higher to maintain.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I word that to them is, hey, look, there's even a potential that your weight is not going to fluctuate at all. And in some cases, as wild as it sounds, it may, in all due time, slightly, ever so slightly go down because your output is now going up.
Yeah.
You're going to train way harder than what you thought. You can be breaking PBs all the time. You can be moving around more without even trying.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be burning more than what you are now. You're just a slower, weaker person right now, right?
Yeah.
So who's not a calorie burning machine. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, and it's something I've just recently experienced. I hadn't done it for a while because I hadn't done a cut for a while, but I've cut and I lost like 12 kilos. And I did a DEXA and I got down to about 2,000 calories a day. So I started like 3,500 and then just as weight loss sort of stopped and I didn't want to drastically increase my steps a heap. So I just brought calories down. Anyway, then my plan was do the DEXA, see what I can get to, and then bring back to maintenance. And I planned to bring it back to like 2.5 or 2.6 or 2.7. But then I just kind of got a little bit tired with that. So I've been over that. And every morning I wake up and I'm like, weight's going to be up today because I've probably hit 3,000 something yesterday and it's lower.
Wow. What a good feeling.
Yeah. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck's sake, I'm going to have to eat some more food today.
Yeah.
But it's because as you get to the back end of a diet, it's really, really hard to want to do the steps and, persist with it because it's going to help. But your training intensity is going to drop so much. Try your best to keep it there. And like you said, with your cutting phases and your building phases, you probably actually might decrease your volume a little bit as you go into a cutting phase, which I think a lot of people don't understand why you'll do that. Well, I want to burn more calories.
Yeah.
But you can't train as hard.
Exactly.
So focus on quality. And then as you come out of that, you eat more food, you can then train harder. Your steps will go up.
Exactly.
You'll fidget a lot more. You'll stand up a lot more. That's subtle things that people don't realize.
They don't. Now that's our job, right?
Yeah.
That's our job for the good old check-ins and the admin work we're doing outside of the sessions, right? To look at all those variables and see which one we can tweak to get their progress ticking along at the rate that it should be, right?
Yeah. And that's why we do ask for that, because it's, well, it is cool seeing the trends and you see the progress, but we don't just sit there and look at data for the enjoyment of it. It's so we can get information, have more informed insights, and we can make better decisions and ultimately get them a result faster. But it does actually take a little bit of effort on their behalf, but it's literally so we can help them get where they want to go.
Exactly.
Faster. And the more data you see on those, the more things that you can see stack up, just the better the results just going to be.
Yeah. Exactly right. That's why you just got to trust the process. If you're seeking out a coach and you know where they're coming from, let's say you've been following them on social media and now you've reached out to them and you want to start training with them, you got to understand that it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to be putting in a lot of hard work, not only inside the sessions, but outside the sessions as well.
Yeah.
And if they're not trying to adhere to it, okay. And I use that word try very heavily because some people do try and they might have psychological barriers getting in the way or other things getting in the way, but they have a good intention and eventually they get it right. But people that don't even try to do that, right? And then they wonder why they're not getting results they should be, regardless of having a coach. Well, that's because the coach is there to lay out the tools for you, but it's based on how you use those tools and how well you can adhere to them, right? And there's so many things that we need to see from a client. Like you said, the data we need to give them informed decisions on what they need to do to break through plateaus.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that, right? They think we just want to see their weight and maybe give them a pep talk if they don't reach their weight, but it's not that.
No.
Right? We're looking at multiple different things, right? It could be, how is if their sleep is being disrupted and they don't have any external sources of stress that could be contributing to that, and their hunger's coincidentally at the same time very high all the time, their steps, they just don't have the motivation to do it anymore, or their lifts are starting to go down, this might mean X. Or their motivation's very high, their sleep is very good, that might mean
Whatever
X as well. Yeah. So yeah, it's there's a lot more that goes into it than a lot of people might think.
Yeah, and it's like, if anybody's listening and you do have a coach, just probably do what your coach says, because
That's the simple answer,
yeah,
right?
But
just fucking do it.
Yeah, or try, because like we do this job because we want to see people succeed. Obviously, there's much easier routes to go to just make money. It's like, we want to see you succeed, and we only ever want to see the best for a client, and we'll only ever coach the client on the thing that we think is going to get them the best result. Literally never the other way around. We're not trying to get you a worse result.
Exactly.
So when it's like, we do pull nutrition back, or if it's sometimes pulling steps back for clients that want to get stronger. If you're doing 20,000 steps a day, because it goes both ways. So if you, just because you're trying to, when we're getting leaner, we might want to add steps, and that changes their output. But then if it's someone wanting to get stronger and you're doing 25,000 steps a day and you want to increase your back squat by 10 kilos, it's not going to happen that way. And it's like, there's so many variables. And I think the big thing to take away from it, it's always like, more knowledge is power. Yeah. So the more knowledge you have around those things, then the more power you have to change those things.
That's very true.
And then you can get a better result, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
That's it. So if you know that, okay, well, my steps are down and I'm eating 2,000 calories a day and it's stopped, well, let's maybe get your steps up a couple thousand calories a day. And then all of a sudden you've got over that plateau. Sometimes it's a lot more, in depth than that, but
but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a very simple answer.
That's the thing. And it's one of frustration is when clients, you drop their calories because they want to get leaner, and then they simultaneously drop their steps when you've told them.
It's like, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, buddy. So
keep things, and I think that's a big thing that if people could do one thing, it's just try to standardize the process and change only one or two things at a time.
I agree with that. I agree completely with that. And that's why I even said before, either steps or calories, right?
Yeah. And that's as well, like, that the mistake I made in the past was not being so willing to, not understanding energy balance is a key thing. If someone wants results, whether they want to get bigger or they want to get leaner, having that understanding of that. I think sometimes people try to, everybody wants a secret, everybody wants it to be some other way. But when you tell people, it's just managing your energy balance, which is complex, but also relatively simple when you're like.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like, it actually is very fucking simple.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to write it down on paper, anyone could understand it in less than a minute.
Yeah.
But it's obviously, you have other things which will either make it more sustainable or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Make you perform differently. Might be easier for you to adhere to. These are all the minor things that just make it that much better, right? But in essence, it's just energy balance.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
And if you can get an understanding of that sooner, you just then end up getting a better result.
Exactly.
Which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So clients, listen to your coach.
That's it.
Okay, let's get on to some exercise stuff, mate. One thing that I want to do is, you would have seen at some point, Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, he does the 10 exercises. If you could only do 10 exercises, I think it's quite cool because
it's very cool.
Yeah, it gives a bit of an insight. So your top 10 exercises and why? And
are we talking like what I favorite or what I think is like optimal? Or
whatever you think your most favorite. So whether it's more, because we can probably always go down the optimal route, but then, and that's probably going to be included in that. But then sometimes it's like, this is just a sick exercise, and I like it.
Cool.
Which is what
Well, hopefully, there's a lot to think about here. So let's probably nail it down to, say, body part.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah.
And talking in the hypertrophy. The goal to be hypertrophy, right? So
it should always be the goal.
That's always the goal. So chest. Look, there's a lot of exercises I could say would work very well based on X, Y, and Z goal. But I personally, if I were to knock it down to one, I would probably say a 30-degree incline neutral grip dumbbell bench press.
Nice.
So, and there's various reasons for that. So obviously that's to bias more of the upper chest. Upper chest is usually, on average for most people, not an overly dominant area, right?
Everybody can do with more upper chest.
Everyone could do with more upper chest, right?
All your problems will be resolved if you
literally
more upper chest.
Literally, yeah. So that's the main reason. Okay,
it's a good enough reason. But
it is,
more behind it.
You don't want to go too aggressive in the incline angle, say above 45 degrees, because you're going to start to get more front delts. Below 15 degrees is going to turn it more into a flat bench. Okay, the neutral grip is better for shoulder health. It's easier to get your scapula in a better position to be pressing and getting a deep stretch on the muscle, which is crucial for muscle growth, and to get a larger range of motion. And it also forces your elbows to tuck in to more of a 45-degree angle away from the body, which is ideal for the arm path that you want to bias more of the upper pecs. Back. Okay, let's try to section off into two parts.
Okay, cool.
Let's just say lats, just generally speaking, the whole lat, and upper back. So mid traps, rhomboids, rear delts. So for lats, I would probably say a one arm lat pull down with a neutral grip, preferably chest supported. So obviously, first and foremost, the one arm is going to allow you to customize the angle to be more suitable to your shoulder width, which is ideal for targeting the lats. So let's say you're using a bar on the lat pull down, a straight bar, or a neutral grip.
Go wide as possible for wide lats.
Yeah. And you have a neutral grip. The medium neutral grip might not be shoulder width for you, and you want roughly around shoulder width to be biasing lats, so you can drive the elbows to the hips. It might be a little bit wider for your frame. Okay. It might be too close. If you do a one arm, you can get that elbow tucked in line with your shoulders, drive the elbow down to the hip, and bias the lats a lot more. And then also the intention behind it, trying to train the lats, you want to be driving the elbow down and the scapula to be pulled down as opposed to retracting it.
That's a common mistake a lot of people make.
It is, isn't it? I mean, you'll still get lat regardless if you're retracting the scapula, but it won't be biasing it as heavily.
Yeah.
And obviously the chest support is going to take stability out of the equation. You take the chest support out. So let's say you've got a bench set in front of a cable machine at, say, 75 to 90 degrees. Your chest is resting on it, and then you're doing a one-arm lat pull-down. If you didn't have that bench in front of your chest, the weight will pull you forward, and you need more stability to have more output for the target muscle. If you're too busy on trying to keep yourself stable, it's going to take away from your output. So upper back, I think if my gym had a T-bar row machine, I would probably say that.
Yeah.
But I like alternatively to be doing a 30-degree incline pronated grip dumbbell row with the elbows out.
Yeah, nice.
So
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's good. I like it.
Such a versatile exercise to
it
do.
is.
And you can play around with the elbow position and
Exactly.
things like that. And then lower back's not the limiting factor.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a similar concept to the one-arm lat pull-down.
Yeah.
The chest-supported one-arm lat pull-down is, you've got something to brace yourself up against. The lower back is not going to be the limiting factor. The posterior chain as a whole, and stability.
What's your opinion on bent rows just in general, like a barbell bent row?
I think if your goal is pure hypertrophy of the upper back and or lats, I think that there could be better alternatives, like a chest support, because then the posterior chain won't be the limiting factor. It will just be the upper back and or lats. However, it is still a great exercise.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time doing bent over barbell rows in my time training, and I've got great results out of it. And that just goes to show you that that's going to go into that topic of the enjoyment factor, right?
Yeah.
We can say what's the quote unquote most optimal exercise, but if you fucking hate the thought of doing it every single time you come in, okay, and you don't want to push it hard, okay, chances are you're not going to push it as hard as what you should. You're not going to progress on it as much as what you should, and you probably won't get as good results from it as what you would have otherwise had if you just picked something that you enjoyed a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that's within reason, right?
Yeah, of course.
If your goal is muscle building, you don't want to be doing CrossFit workouts because you just enjoy it.
Or ever do CrossFit work.
That's right. Yeah.
No, CrossFit's all right.
It's, but yeah, so within reason, of course. So I think they're a great exercise.
They got kind of demonized there a little bit for the last few years, but they seem to be making
their way back in.
Return, which is good. Barbell stuff is good.
Yeah, exactly.
But just it's not always as optimal, depending.
Yeah.
What your definition of optimal. So we got incline bench or dumbbell incline bench.
Yep.
On 30 degree. Your single arm pull down, supported, chest supported row with elbows out, you said?
Yep.
Yep.
More upper back. So stay with upper body for now, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to hit 10, but I'll probably hit close to it. Let's say for shoulders, side delts specifically. I feel like, there's a lot of exercises we could run through here. I think a simple lateral raise with a cable is pretty good.
Yep.
There's different ways you can change that up to bias different parts of the resistance profile. So if you want more of a length, train the side delta more of a lengthened position, you could put the cable up a little bit higher to say hand height. And if you want to bias more of the shortened position, you could put it down to foot height and just do them that way.
Which would you, if you had to pick one, which would you prefer?
To be honest, I would probably do the one from the foot.
Okay.
Because there is still some tension at the bottom because it's a cable where you're stretching the side delts. And yes, you could argue that the whole argument of, well, it's not an argument. Muscles do grow better when trained in a stretch position. Okay. But it isn't to say you want to neglect the shortened position completely anyways. And that gets a bit of both. Okay. And just anecdotally, I like that exercise. And I'll probably refine that answer a little bit. A behind the back one arm cable lateral raise.
Nice.
Because you can now get a bigger stretch on the delts because you're bringing it behind your back, working the delts in their scapular plane, and it feels great.
Yeah.
It feels great. So
Delt pump is very, very important.
Exactly, especially for building that V taper.
Yeah.
Right?
I did some single arm cable lateral raises last night, but I had it a little bit higher, so it was a little bit more.
Oh, I saw that on your story. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You were doing it. Yeah.
I find that's for me, and it's obviously there is preference between where people get better leverage and better feeling, but for me, that's the bottom part is usually where I lack the most and feel that exercise the best.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And you don't get that in a standing dumbbell lateral raise.
No.
Right?
Which is still a really good exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like we go into that talk of like the optimal or the chasing optimized training all the time.
Yeah.
It should be majority of your training. You want to pick more optimal routes, right? But sometimes it's not practical.
Yeah.
Okay. And sometimes you don't enjoy it as much. So if there's an alternative that's slightly more, there's slightly more enjoyment out of it, it still ticks all the boxes off and you know you're going to be able to push it harder. Well, that might be a good option for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Rob, do you know Rob Nee from...
Yeah.
He said he learned somewhere that, I don't know if it was a course that he did, and it was said as a joke, but they said, there's no mandatory exercises for bodybuilding except dumbbell lateral raises.
That's true. If you don't spend enough time doing dumbbell lateral raises, you're doing something wrong.
And people know it as well. So.
Yeah. Probably die of catabolism.
Yes,
absolutely. Okay. So we've got chest.
Yep.
We've got lats, upper back.
Lateral raise.
We've got, side delts.
Have some nice upper body there, mate, if you just banged all those.
I mean, actually, for a V taper, you could bang that out.
Yeah.
I mean, we could say for arms. So say for biceps, I love the facing away cable curl. So the reason for that is there's a lot of tension throughout the whole portion of the lift. You're putting your biceps in a real stretch position. There's tension there. The elbows are behind the body. It feels great. I really like that exercise.
Yeah, big biceps is never a
There you go. And taking up 2 cables in peak hour to do curls.
Perfect.
There's not a better way to piss off all the members in the gym and to look like a douchebag PT, right?
But you have big arms.
So that's all that's going to matter, right?
I said,
hopefully scare them away.
Yeah, that's it. I said on one of my, I think it was the first podcast, if you don't want bigger arms, you're wrong.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's never a reason to have small arms.
No.
Right?
Yeah, not a good reason.
For triceps, that's a tricky one. I would probably say the cable crossover pushdown. So you're facing a narrow cable machine, I might add. You're
Still at peak time.
Still at peak hour. Yeah.
Absolutely. Got to get those triceps in.
Yeah.
Well, if you got biceps, you got to get triceps.
Exactly. Yeah. Preferably supersetted with biceps to take even longer on the cable machine.
But the pump is
it's going to be unbelievable.
Yeah.
So your right hand grabs the left cable, left hand grabs the right cable. You pull your elbows back. Your elbows slightly behind the torso. I'm going to explain why in a second. And your elbows are slightly flared, just slightly. And then you extend past the body. Now, the long head of the triceps, which is the juiciest, meatiest part of the triceps, the sleeve busting part of the triceps.
That's how it's described in anatomy textbooks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So by having a decent amount of shoulder extension, pretty much where the arm is behind the torso, which that allows you to do, you will be training the long head in the shortened position, but there is still a good stretch component at the top. And it feels great.
Yeah.
And your elbows are in a more natural plane to be training the triceps. Because you're using 2 cables, it's more customizable to your frame, similar to what we were talking about with the lat pull down. If you use a straight bar for a tricep push down, sometimes the straight bar is inside your shoulder width. Okay. And ideally, if you want to pull your elbows behind your body or even beside your torso, they're going to have to be the implement you use is going to have to allow you to go roughly at shoulder width. And if this bar is inside shoulder width, it's going to feel very awkward. You probably won't be able to range of motion. You probably won't be able to fully shorten the triceps. You could, but you won't be able to bias the long head as much.
Yeah. And you're probably going to have your arms out in front, which is going to create a little bit less stability, which is going to less output.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you might even be in a slightly internally rotated position as well. But it isn't to say that if you were to use an implement that was slightly inside of shoulder width, that you're not going to get any results.
Yeah.
And there's some times where your gym just might not have the availability of doing something like a cable crossover push down, like we're saying in peak hour, taking up 2 cables. So you could even do it single arm.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good point to make is a lot of your exercises are that you're saying you make a big emphasis on matching it to the person's frame, which is such a thing that there for a long time it was like, well, if you want a big back, you need to do wide lat pull downs because the biggest guy in the gym does it at the widest lat pull down point. And he is the biggest guy in the gym. And the same thing with the bench press. If you want a big chest, you need to hold the bar out super, super wide.
Yeah.
Because the guy with the barrel chest over there that has a massive bench press, he holds it wide. So and it was one thing that I made a mistake of doing when I would do the wider lat pull down, the wider bench, and I just don't have wide collarbones. So then it would just blow up my shoulders and I'd feel absolutely nothing in my chest, and then my shoulders would just feel shit. And but if you can match the implement to your individual anatomy, then that's the secret.
And if you can stack all the joints well, then you're going to run into less issues with your joints as well. For triceps, it might be your elbows, or sometimes I guess even your shoulders, right? So we've covered chest, lats, upper back, side delts,
biceps, triceps.
Shall we move on to the lower body?
Well, we usually start with that on this channel,
Right.
right? But that's right. You said all excellent exercises.
Yeah.
Just wait for someone to say squat as number one and I'll go correct. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Your body is designed for a squat.
Oh, mate, that's it.
Yeah.
I just meant to live there.
Yeah, I saw you post the other day. It's like it's very hard to be doing something which is not squat based or posting something that's not squat based.
Yeah.
So for the quads, from a hypertrophy standpoint, I think a good hack squat machine makes a lot of sense because you're training that squat movement pattern. You're now taking the stability part out of the equation. So your core, lower back, glutes will be minimized as well because your torso is going to be more upright. If you put a low foot position where you can get a lot of the knees over the toes, you're going to fully stretch the quads, and you can push the quads close to failure without the lower back, core, and glutes coming into play.
Not a fun time on a
Definitely not. If you've pushed that to failure, even close to failure, where you're saying to yourself, okay, like, should I scream for help or should I just keep persisting on this middle part of the rep and I'll get out of it, you know?
Fucking horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a pendulum squat? You prefer hack squat or you prefer high squat?
To be honest with you, a pendulum squat I really like as well. If I were to knock it down to the two, I would probably say the hack squat. And in the hack squat, it's actually placing more resistance in the lengthened position anyways, because of the simple pendulum, right? Motion. Yeah, exactly. But both of them, they're both great pieces of equipment.
One thing I would like to see is a little bit more of adjustable foot plate. On I can get into the same position on a squat at my feet right on the low position of a hack squat.
Exactly.
But then for some people, you just can't get that same. But if you could just knock that platform down a little bit, make it a heels elevated.
I agree. That would be amazing.
Have you trained at Onyx in Alexandria?
No, I haven't.
They have the Watson pendulum squat, and you can change that.
Nice.
On there. Yeah.
Nice.
Which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Because you can pretty much be in you know how on a pendulum squat sometimes you can start in quite a bit of hip flexion.
Yep.
You can pretty much have your feet straight underneath your shoulders on this one.
Wow.
And then just go sink it because it's just heels elevated.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Nasty, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely, but worth it.
Yeah. Big quads is very, very important.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so we got quads. Now, for hamstrings, that's a hard one because I want to say Romanian deadlift, so we could probably fall that. Yeah, if
it's one way that it comes into it's almost best to use a barbell with this realm.
Yeah, exactly.
Every other exercise you can kind of get away, but if the glutes and hamstrings, you need to use a barbell almost.
Yeah. Like with Romanian deadlifts, if you're using dumbbells, stability is a factor. And because of that, grip strength is going to be challenged even more. Well, I guess you could use lifting straps anyways.
And it's just a pain in the ass to lift up really heavy dumbbells.
And not all gyms have, like if you can lift a respectable amount of weight on a Romanian deadlift, your gym is probably not going to have dumbbells that heavy.
No.
So a barbell Romanian deadlift will probably make more sense in that aspect. But I would like to say for hamstrings, I would probably have two exercises for that. I'd say Romanian deadlift, obviously with a stiffer knee, so you can bias more hamstrings rather than the glutes. And then second to that, we'll say the seated leg curl, because it's a leg curl variation where you can train the biceps femoris in their shortened position, which you cannot get with a Romanian deadlift. You cannot get it with hip hinging movements, and it puts you in a stretch position because you're flexed at the hips, right?
It's grim when you take it to that point of just get stuck in there and you want to get out. And
there's no getting out.
So shit.
So that's a hard one to answer. So I'd probably give like two answers to that one.
Yeah. We can have 11 or 12 or however many exercises you want. It's my podcast, so I changed the rules.
Yeah. So we've got that now. Calves. Oh, fuck calves. That doesn't even count, does it?
I'm at an advantage. My mum she has the same size calves as me, and I have pretty big calves compared to most people.
Yeah.
I've just they've always had them, and then when I train them, they just get stupidly big.
Lucky bastard. Yeah, lucky bastard. I haven't been blessed with. Well, I brought my calves up from nothing to something.
Yeah.
I definitely did, which I'm very proud of myself for. Rather than just like saying my whole life they're genetic and I cannot grow them.
Well, that's the thing, man.
Yeah. So with calves, I actually found that, and studies have even shown this, training them more in the stretch position is better for muscle growth. And it was funny because when I first started training, I actually used to do like single leg dumbbell calf raises, and I'd do like a 2-second pause at the bottom. And it was like a deep, gnarly, painful stretch. And when I started training calves like that and not bouncing every reps, all the reps like people do in the gym, that's when I saw real growth in my calves. And again, I'm not going to be strutting around like I've got a big set of calves.
You got pretty big calves.
But I guess so, yeah. And
everywhere else is so big, mate. It just looks...
Well, that's the thing. It's like when your quads are very overdeveloped, it makes your calves look like shit. Like even if they do have a respectable amount of size on them, it's that ratio game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how many exercises is that? That's chest, upper back, lats, side delts, bis, tris. We got so the Romanian deadlift could even fall, it can definitely fall into the category of glutes, but let's throw in a 9th exercise just for glutes specifically. I'd say a barbell hip thrust, a constant tension barbell hip thrust where it's not touching the floor. Again, you can get those glutes in fully shortened position. There's still a bit of a stretch there at the bottom, and it feels great.
And as long as you're not lifting with your ego like some people do and trying to do a 1 RM hip thrust.
And if you're not looking at the person in front of you and the squat rack in the eyes, then you're completely fine.
But that's one that you must take up a squat rack at peak time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then I think that's pretty good. 9 exercises, and we like went ham on the hamstring glute section of things, which... Yeah, I mean, we could probably arguably take the hip thrust out because the thing with the Romanian deadlift is it's hitting the hamstrings a lot. It's also hitting the glutes a lot. So let's take the hip thrust out. We'll say the Romanian deadlift is going to target definitely a lot of glutes and definitely a lot of hamstrings. I always do it the slight bend. It's going to get a bit of both, maybe biasing a little bit more glutes, but let's put that in there instead.
Nice.
So that's 8 exercises. And yeah, I think I'd be pretty good with that.
A very efficient 8 exercises because most people want to go over the 10.
Really?
So, yeah.
Well, I would say if you could hammer those exercises, like every body part you want, you're going to be able to bring it up. I would say maybe the only thing I would argue is that maybe rear delts, which are very important for building like capped delts.
But you got your chest supported row with elbows out.
That's what I was going to say. That's why I didn't add anything in there because
they get smacked on that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They really do. Like, I mean, you could probably argue to bias more rear delts, you could get slightly more of a tucked elbow position, like 45-ish, so you can bring the elbows back even further. Because with the style that I would do. The incline dumbbell row with the pronated grip and the elbows out would be more like a 75 to 90 degree arm path, but you're still going to get a lot of rear delts. Yeah. So let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice, efficient way. Maybe we could throw in one more for chest.
Yeah, which is very important. What would you do for another one for chest?
For chest, I would say chest dips.
Nice.
You cannot fucking go wrong with weighted chest dips.
It's such a good exercise.
In every way possible.
Yeah.
In every way possible. You look like a monster when you're doing it. Once you can start throwing throwing those 20 kilos under you,
Yeah.
20 kilo plates, the whole gym is watching you when
Yeah.
you're doing it. Well, at least I feel like they are.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. You just got your shirt off at 6 p.m. doing it 8 times. They're definitely watching you.
And pants off as well, yeah. So
Make a statement as you then just walk over to do the tricep cable.
yeah, exactly. So
It's Luciano's playground, not one playground.
yeah, so the way I like to do chest dips might be slightly different. So the way I like to do it is I will tuck the knees in front of my body. I'll lean the torso forward.
So, Vince Gironda?
Similar, very similar. Yeah, I'll normally have my knees bent. I think, don't take my word for it, he had his legs very straight, like with a hollow body. And
very strict about everything.
Yeah. And he also had a very unusual one. Again, you remember that one?
Yeah,
very controversial one.
Yeah.
Haven't quite tried it yet. Don't know how that would turn out because on paper it doesn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd probably line up. You get less stretch of the chest at the top, but at least potentially lining up the fiber line more like a sternal. I
was going to say that. Yeah,
but very demanding on the body.
Exactly,
if
on
you're
the
not
shoulders.
up to it. But if you could do it, it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
because the magnitude of the load, and then you have with like a sternal pec fly, you're probably going to have to battle with stability at a point.
Yeah.
Harder to set up, but if you could do that.
Definitely not the Gironda dip with the internally rotated like grip.
Yeah.
Or you could say isn't even like a neutral grip. That's like I don't even know what that is. But yeah, that probably not something you're going to be giving your clients anytime soon.
No. But dips.
Dips in general, yeah. So dips, so hinging forward at the hips, the knees tucked in front of the body, leaning forward, and the elbows slightly flared out, trying to get the shoulders underneath the elbows and get a big stretch on the pecs. Yes, it is very good for the costal pec fibers, but the whole pec in general is going to be hit with that. And you're getting a deep stretch that you wouldn't otherwise get if you're doing a barbell bench press. And yeah, like I said, it looks cool as fuck as well.
Yeah. So. And you can, I think because people don't classify a dip as a press, but a dip is going to be a variation of a press. And if you're doing decline press, you could do a similar movement, but you're not going to have anywhere near the potential to load it because getting dumbbells there is just a pain in the ass. Getting a barbell there, you're not going to get as much stretch. You might be able to lift weight, but then even then you're upside down and
yeah, exactly.
It's a bit awkward.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point, and that's an issue with the dumbbell version. Is like trying to get those dumbbells up there. The setup,
it's
you know,
a pain in the ass,
exactly.
and it. From a leverage standpoint, it's where we can lift the most amount of weight on a pressing exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
So a dip it just ticks all those boxes because you can do it body weight and then add more weight on there.
Yeah, there you go.
What's the heaviest you've done on a dip for? Because you don't really test 1RMs and stuff. Would it be for reps?
It would be, yeah. I would normally do it for like 5 reps if I'm going to. I don't really test, but it would be, say, if I'm in a phase of training where I'm doing 5 to 6 reps or 4 to 6 reps, it'd be on my last week where I'm pushing 0 to 1 reps in reserve. And I think I actually hit an all-time PB. What was it? It was 2 weeks ago. I think at 92 kilos, I think I did a 35 kilo dip for 6 reps with a pause at the bottom.
Yeah, that's not
and it was like my
the whole gym would have been watching.
yeah. So, I think, and it was deep. It was like my shoulders are pretty much touching, they were at the same height as my hands at the bottom of the rep. Yeah. So it was getting a big stretch. Yeah. So there you go. I could potentially do more. Yeah. But with how strict my form was as well.
Well, that's the thing. And if for the results that most people want of building more muscle mass, your shit form's never going to get you there.
Exactly.
Literally, it will detract from you getting the amount of muscle mass that you want. Particularly, like you said, you pause in the bottom position, in the stretch position, which is where most people want to get out of there as quick as they can.
Exactly.
That's a conscious choice once you understand it, it's a conscious choice to get away from building more muscle mass.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's where the money's at and you're literally skipping out on it.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing? And that's the thing.
Oh, but it's hard. Yeah, we know.
That's the whole point.
It's the point of it.
So, like, we're not playing Monopoly here, you know?
No.
So, and that's the thing. So, I think in recent years, I would even go as far as to say just the last year and a half in general, with the whole TikTok era. I'm actually not even on TikTok yet.
Yeah, it's a waste.
Don't know
of
if
time.
I will, but and apparently there's a big era of younger, up and coming influencers slash bodybuilders that ego lift quite a bit, and now people are seeing that and they think ego lifting is going to get them huge. When in reality, the person just had superior genetics, was pounding down a shitload of gear, and just got there by luck, and is probably riddled with injuries or going to be riddled with injuries.
Yeah.
And when they hit a plateau in their training, they're not going to be able to surpass the level that they're at because they're just not doing things properly.
No.
They're not training the muscles that they should be, and they're not doing it efficiently either. I mean, you've got all this fatigue you're creating from loading up all this weight, right, on an exercise, peripheral fatigue. So throughout the whole body, everything but the target muscle, right?
Yeah.
For what, right? You could just easily minimize that fatigue by lowering the weight, getting a deep stretch, a full range of motion, even maybe manipulating the tempo. So you're pausing in the stretch position, for example, whatever it might be, and you get more out of it. You won't have to lift as much weight. You still will be able to get stronger.
Yeah, that's
you will
the
be,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually getting stronger at the exercise you're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And actually growing muscle in that time.
Exactly.
Which will allow you to get stronger.
Yeah, there you go. And your recovery will be better as well. You'll be able to revisit that session or the same body part days later rather than more than a week later, right? Because you're still recovering.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny. I've had clients say to me before when I've posted a PB squat or something like that, and the comment is, oh, you didn't let your form go. Yeah, because that's not the goal.
That's not the point. Yeah, I'm meant to be doing a squat, not a good morning. Yeah,
it's meant to look like that up until the highest point, and then when it can't, then I don't do it.
Exactly right.
And if it's for a single or for it's 5, 6 reps or 10 reps, like your shit form, like if you're doing shit form just to get a set out, then you might as well just not do that. Well, you're still going to get something from it, but it's just, why not make it better?
Exactly right.
Why not do it right? And
quality over quantity.
That's it.
You know?
That is it. Mate, we're probably going to have to pull it up there because I got to run to the academy and meet someone, but that was good fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like
really,
that. Just
really
good old bro chat, you know?
Mate, it's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
As good as it
gets.
That
was perfect.
Yeah. We will definitely have you back on for however many you want to come on for, mate. But that was really, really good.
More than happy to do that.
Awesome.
Talk about all things about lifting heavy things.
Yes. The masters are going.
That was awesome, man. I really